Stellaris, Massive as Orion, 1, 2, maybe not 3, and obviously the reboot, Endless Space 2, Sins of a Solar Empire, and all of its expansions, the Galactic Civilization series. I love all of these games, and they all fit under a nice little branch of gaming I call, and so do a lot of other people, called 4X. 4X games are, for those of you who haven't heard of the terminology, are games like Civilization. Civilization 6, for instance, is the newest area into the franchise. Games like sort of Age of Wonders and, in some respects, Anno 2070. But they go a little bit more and a little bit less than those games do. They are called 4X because they have four main properties. Properties that some games like Anno and Hearts of Iron 4, for instance, don't necessarily have, but games like Civilization and Age of Wonders do have. The four properties of these games are explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. The 4X's. 4X. These games are one of the games that brought me into gaming. The games that, when I look back on my life and my childhood, I'm thinking, this game is a 4X game, and this game is the thing that made me fall in love with my PC and fall in love with gaming and as a whole. That game is Master Orion 2. My brother was bought Master Orion 2 for Christmas one year, I believe, and it's a game that he loved and he was good at, and my other brother was good and he loved it and he was good at it. Me, I think I was probably a little bit too young to understand exactly what was going on, and as well as that, growing up I struggled to read. Even now I struggle to read, and that is a big barrier for these games. It is a wall that I smashed into and try to get behind. But even though I couldn't read the technology trees and all this lot, I really tried to play the game and I really tried to love it, and I did, and I had a huge amount of fun with it. Now, did I ever complete a campaign when I was younger? I can't even remember, but one thing I remember is the terrifying prospect of the Master Orion and the terrifying prospect of something just wiping me out constantly, and that speck of fear that grows as the game continues, as you grow to love your empire and love your, for lack of a better word, citizens. As you grow to love them and care about what you've created, that fear grows and grows and grows, because you know in the next couple of star systems there is an empire 2-3 times the size of yours, and it's coming in and it's going to crush you. At least that's what happens if you're bad at the game like me. And normally the leader of those empires' name is Tau or Viper. Yeah, you two, you're dicks. So why do I love 4X so much? Well, what I just talked about was a small part of why I love it. I love the stories that come out of it, and actually, hint hint, I've got something coming up in the future about those stories, and I love the time and the energy that you can put in it. I like the fact they are very, some are not so complex, but some are very complex. You have the grand strategies like Stellaris, and the not very basic ones, but the more basic ones like the new Master Orion reboot. I love them equally, but for two different reasons, two different sets of stories that come out of them. The pacing of these games, it can be very in-depth and also quite slow, but at the same time very methodical and trying to think on your feet in a different way from games like World of Tanks and War Thunder, for instance. Every turn or every few minutes in Stellaris' case, which is a real-time based one like Sins of a Solar Empire, in those games, they are very slow based. They are time consuming and drawn out, and they can start off very slowly and then slowly get quite hectic and thought provoking. But what I always like is there's always something to do. There's always that snappiness. There's always like, right now I need to do this, now I need to do this, now I need to do this. I know it's not as quick or as fast paced as the running gun in Call of Duty or Battlefield, and it's not as quite as tactical in some respects as when it comes down to the here and now of World of Tanks. But what you do is you won't be thinking like the speed of which you will be in Call of Duty, but you'll be thinking in a different way. It's really hard to put into words how I feel. One of the best things about this game is over putting so much time and effort and energy into a plan that could take 200 turns to develop, and then watching it flourish. Or you could be breaking down in tears because the plan you took 200 turns to create gets destroyed by an asshole who lives in, well, Scotland. Viper. It's the things where you can play on your own and still end up with incredible stories, even if you are against the AI. But then you can also come up with incredible stories and playing with your friends. There was a time where I convinced Hunter to give me part of his, just an empire or two, planet or two, and before we had to eventually end the game, which was a shame, he gave me one of his back planets. I convinced him to give me, on a spiral galaxy, there was an arm of it. At the very end of the arm, I asked him to give me his final one, and then I launched all my ships from my base over to his, and I declared war on him. Now, I didn't read the mechanics properly, and I actually completely and utterly fucked it up, because the declaring war process took a lot longer, and I messed it up. And Hunter didn't destroy me, but the game ended in a way that I didn't actually get to do anything. But it was that thing where I had planned this out and it fucking worked. I managed to convince someone in real life to give me something in game, and then it was that sort of, instead of the conversation, the diplomacy between an AI and you through the game mechanics, we expanded that into the real world where me and Hunter were coming up with strategies to kill people, but actually I was all along going to backstab him in the ass. And that's one of the things I love about these games, is playing it with my friends brings a whole new dimension to that sort of political gain systems, where the game will never, I don't believe that games will ever come up with the interaction and the political gain systems that you and your friends can have, but I do think that they are good enough to create incredible stories. I love the way that you can interact with AIs in this as well. It's not as incredible or it's not as complex as obviously two humans going at it with their minds doing the battling, but it still has that degree of I can't think of the word, but it has that degree of complexity to it where, for instance, in my most recent game of Stellaris, I had made an ally who was quite strong. He was one of the strongest guys in the portion of the map that I had uncovered in that exploration part of the game, and he asked if I wanted to be friends, and I said yes, definitely. I want this guy on my side, I want this guy on my side, I want this guy on my side, and eventually we're going to my plan was to make a federation and to take over that part of the map and use this as a force to go and conquer everyone else, because I knew when it came against Viper, Tau and Lee, I would have no chance in that multiplayer game. So I was going to use the AI to do a lot of work for me, but actually the AI had another plan coming, and something I never saw was he turned around to me and he was bigger and stronger and said, let's be friends. And then he turned around and said, you're now my bitch, and if you're not going to be my bitch, I'm going to murder you. And then he stopped me from expanding. He stopped me, he put laws and legislation in that stopped me from expanding, stopped me from creating, stopped me from making, stopped me from invading, and I was stuck in a rut. And it got to the point where the only way I was going to get out of this rut was to declare war on him. So I did. And he destroyed me. He brought his fleet over and he just annihilated me instantly. Now, in hindsight, it was a stupid decision, and actually since then I've come up with a few ways where I could have actually waited and gained and struck out, and actually maybe during a war that he declared on someone else, spin the tides of it and make allies with his enemy and then go in and get him. But it was that on-the-spot thinking that fucked me up, and it's the fact that there is no on-spot thinking in particular with these sort of games that I really like. Everything has to be planned out. Now obviously you have to manipulate and change plans on the fly, but if you just make a harsh decision, English, like I did, you're going to fuck up. It's these things where I think the number one thing I like about these games is the stories that come out of them at the end of it. The stories with my friends, the stories with the AI, the stories I just have from playing a civilization, expanding, exploring, exploiting, and exterminating. These games will be with me till probably the day I die. They are games I could play when I was younger, and they are games that I'll be able to play when I'm much older. But at the same time, they are games that I can play now, and I can love and I can appreciate. And one thing is, I like this rejuvenating energy we've had in the 4X community, in the 4X genre. Games like Galactic Civilization 3 came out. Yes, it was a mess, but it came out and it was purchased and it was bought, and hopefully one day they'll fix that fucking game. Then you had Wargaming, who took the Master Orion, and I am so thankful that actually they took it and they did something with it and they modernised it. And I know a lot of people don't necessarily like it, but a lot of people do, and it's a game that got me engaged into the 4X community, has actually got other people engaged in the 4X community, and I love that. And then you have games like Stellaris that are your pro scene. It's your grand strategies, it's your hours and hours of time manipulation and thinking, sticking the game on pause while you try and figure out how the fuck you're gonna do this guy who's just about to do you. And then they have the slightly more casual stuff like End of Space, which has the degree of complexity but also has some of its aspects taken out to give that degree of simplicity, and they have the balance perfect in my opinion. I love 4X games, and if I sat here and talked about it and all the different aspects I loved about it, I'd be here all day, and this video is going to have to end at some point. So if you're sat at home with 8 hours to spare, like I sometimes am, then what I would do is go see if a 4X game is on sale, load it up, and go play it, and see what you think. My personal recommendation would be either Endless Space 1 or Master Orion. 2 games that are quite easy to get into, especially Master Orion, but you can come out with some brilliant stories. And if you can't afford them, then there are plenty of YouTubers out there who play the games to a really good degree where you can learn them, and you can be involved in their stories. And maybe one day you'll be able to make stories of your own. It's just something I really encourage you guys to go and do. Anyway guys, I think that's an end to the video before I keep rambling on about how much I love these games. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.